Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar from iFol, in which we're going to be uncovering trends in AP automation for 2025, some of which I know are going to raise some eyebrows and get everyone talking. I'm Jay Viderlingham, and we are very lucky today to be joined by a fantastic panel of experts, and they've got a wealth of experience and insights as well. So let's bring them in and we can have a chat to them. We've got Mike Boyce, solutions consultant at Restore Information Management. We've got Jamie Priest with us as well, Regional Sales Director at DocuWare, and our very own Louise Graham, COO and Head of Institute at iFol, with a background in working in finance operations at huge organisations like Costa Coffee, Santander, UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, you name it. So anyway, welcome along. It's great to have you here. We want to shake things up actually this time and hear from you in the audience quite early on. So don't wait until the end of the webinar to send in your thoughts on this. We're going to kick off with asking you guys, what was your first work-related thought this morning? First work-related thought. This is just in the chat, just for a bit of fun, really. Mine was chasing up a client about some details for a podcast I'm working on. So we just want to kind of get your brains thinking a little bit. Let's go around the room. Louise, what was your first work-related thought?
Mine was I silly enough to put in a meeting at 9:30, which is when I log on, or did I put in my first meeting for 9:45? Was I sensible enough to do that last week? And I was sensible enough to do that last week. I was delighted to come down, and I thanked my former self from last week for giving myself a break to read my emails before I started my first meeting.
Oh, that's really good. Jamie, what was your first work-related thought today?
I think on the contrary to Louise, my first work-related thought started at 6 a.m. because I had to join a call with an Australian company. So I didn't really have much time to think about anything but that call this morning. Otherwise, it would have been just the day's planning.
Okay. And Mike, first work-related thought today?
I Mine would have been, am I ready for the demos? I think I had two demos to do today. Presentations on AP processing and making sure I had the right things that were going to work, and people were going to join them. So I was getting ready for those, and like everyone else, making sure I've got enough time between meetings to catch up on emails and everything else. You kind of try and cram too many things in one day nowadays.
Absolutely, yeah. And just going through some of the audience, Heather Brem says, "What's on my calendar?" Melanie Lievo says, "Oh, my kid's going to give me a hard time getting out the door." Not sure that's strictly work.
So yes, the answer is yes, they will.
Yeah, today will be a good day. What's on the schedule? Yvette Bat said. So this is great. So we're all work focused. So that's fantastic. So do keep them coming in, and we'll kind of check back on those as we go through. So now that we're all work focused, let's lift the lid a bit on the AP Automation Trends 2025 research report, shall we? And one figure that jumped out for me was that 66% of people still manually key invoices into their ERP or finance system. So we have got a poll back to the audience, I suppose, ask you guys, do you still manually key your AP invoices? You should be able to see the poll on the screen, hopefully. And it's there. Yeah. So do you still manually key your AP invoices? So the options are yes, all of them, yes, some of them, or no, none of them. So we'll just wait until all of the people have come back. It's quite exciting watching the results come in, isn't it? Just wait. We're nearly all there. I think we've got an overall winner here already. 88% of people. Still a few more people waiting to put in their responses to the poll. But I think it's looking like the middle one, isn't it? Yes, some of them. So some of them, so sort of a partial take up, if you like. So let's get a bit of a reaction to that. Mike, what's your reaction to that? Is that kind of what you thought people were going to say?
Yes, and the some of them is probably the ones that are hard to read, or the top 20% or 10% of suppliers that aren't the standard format invoices you can capture data from. We have a lot of organizations that we work with that do automation on parts of the invoice as well. And when it gets to line item capture or some of the more intuitive background databases or Excel sheets that sometimes get sent in with invoices, it's hard to capture that part, and that ends up being manually entered. So yeah, it makes sense that reads true, that poll.
Yeah. Jamie, your thoughts on that? Are you surprised by that?
I mean, the research report mentioned that there is still a lot of manual processing happening, like you mentioned. I think it does definitely sit between all of them and some of them. And like Mike mentioned, the question is why? Why only some of them? Do you still have to manually key in? Um, but yeah, automation, I think, is either stagnated by the results of that poll. So they've reached a point where automation has gotten to its absolute best, and they're not sure where to go next. So I have to find that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And Louise, your thoughts on the poll, the first one?
Yeah, 16%, all of them. Blimey, that's a lot of people just typing, which is really shocking. I've worked in a lot of different organisations. I've been a contractor before this role for 20 years, and I've very rarely seen an organisation where all of the invoices are keyed manually. But yeah, it's quite a shocking number actually. That's over 80% that are in some or all, and only 16% fully automated, which you'd really want that number to be higher. The gold standard is straight through, right? Invoices come in, they match three-way to a purchase order. You don't see them at all. You see the exceptions, and yeah, that's clearly not what we're seeing here. So yeah, interesting numbers.
Yeah, and I suppose borne out a little bit by the research as well, that we've seen, and that 66% figure that we talked about. I love to sort of pull at the thread of these things and sort of ask the question why. So 66, that's obviously two-thirds of people that responded, still not taking it up. Well, why do you think that is such a high figure still? Let's go to Mike again first on that.
Yeah, yeah, a few things. Possibly not ready to change. Haven't put that full business case together to work through an idea or a platform or program to put in place. Again, just having staff there is an easier format. It's not ready to move into the automated AI element of a process yet. Again, we see it with quite a few organizations that are just doing it, and that's their way. That's what they've always done. So aren't used to or aren't ready to move into the automated AI element or even machine learning AI, element of capturing data from documents, and getting that business case and the end goal written down and it's explored is a good starting point to then kind of work towards an end solution.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you? Why do you think that such a high number of people still aren't taking it up?
I think there's a couple points here to raise. One could potentially be fragmented systems. So you've got invoices coming in from multiple different sources, right? How do you streamline that and standardize the way that invoices arrive and come in? Where do they need to go? Are we still managing spreadsheets? Are we manually managing email? Another thing is the invoice quality, which Mike alluded to previously. Is the quality of invoice good enough for common OCR solutions to pick the data up, and automate the process? And then I think an important one is the fear of potential change. Okay. So we're not sure how to do it better, or we're scared that if we change something, we'll break something else. And then that kind of leads into potentially the lack of education of what's possible.
Yeah. And that sort of that risk aversion seems to be a bit of a barrier, doesn't it, Louise? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think people are worried about change, but I think one of the things that we say in the report, which I absolutely agree with, is you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to have your invoice capture and your purchase order matching and your payments all at once. You can start small, and you can just start with invoice capture, right? That's the bit where it's dangerous to manually input it because you'll get data wrong because we're human beings, we're not computers. So I think you can start start small with just invoice capture, and that already will change your life. And then you can work on integrating it to your ERPs or your purchase orders or whatever. And sometimes I think people think it's such a big job they won't do any of it. And so, and actually that's not true. You can start small and you can do experiments. You can do a little proof of concept. You can try it with just one area of your operation, and take it from there. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, because then everyone starts to go, oh, actually that wasn't as difficult as we thought it was. In fact, and isn't that great? Hasn't it changed our lives? Which it will.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is about kind of seeing the benefits, like you say, so making that business case, but actually outlining what you gain from automating. Do you think that that perhaps is not being sold as well as it could be? Mike, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and so I'm just reading some of the comments. Bonnie's put, it's hard to find a platform that's cost effective and integrates with existing accounting platforms. So there's a lot to choose from out there, and like Louise said, you can kind of decompartmentalize it down and say, actually, I'm just looking for a capture element or a solution that just does that capture, and then sends the data to my, the ERP system, a finance product. It's what to do and how much to actually take. But yeah, again, a cost-effective solution that's going to give you the return on investment of grabbing the data and streamlining those parts of the process is sometimes the key part that people are looking to choose, and they need that guidance to work through the best solution. Bit of a consultative approach, look at the best platform for the organization with regards to the amount of invoices they process, the amount of people that need to use it, and how well it integrates and sends data to their finance applications. Sorry, I was looking at some of the comments and I thought that was quite a good point.
Yeah, well, it made the point well, didn't it? Yeah, it's great to, as I said, do keeping your comments coming into the chat, because we do monitor them. I wanted to pick up one from Mindy Sanders as well here, that she says she works for a Japanese company and everything is manual, even manufacturing, planning, and scheduling, all done on Excel. I can see Louise shaking her head there.
Throwing my hands up in horror at businesses being run on Excel in the 21st century. It is just not the right thing to do. We've got a company in the UK here who went bust because of what we call a fat-fingered spreadsheet error. Somebody actually deleted a line on the spreadsheet. It overstated their profits by a lot of money, and they went into liquidation as a result. And that, okay, it should have been picked up, but okay, also you shouldn't have been running your business on spreadsheets. So my recommendation would be get off spreadsheets as soon as you can. I know everyone uses Excel for various things, but actually the less reliance on Excel, the better.
Yeah, and I suppose taking those human errors out of the equation, Jamie, is so important, isn't it, when it comes to looking at automation and doing things better?
Yeah, I think people might be getting it slightly wrong. I see a lot of ERP solutions and accounting solutions being mentioned in the chats, and this is not the focus point of an ERP solution in general. Generally, ERP solutions and accounting solutions expect perfect data. It's how do we take that unstructured data in the form of a document and automate that process straight into the ERP without manual intervention. Now, OCR itself is not the end game either. That is just where we start. And yes, we can save, there's a potential saving of 80-90% of somebody's time if you use the correct capture tool. But what do we do with that data afterwards? How do we streamline the process going into these accounting systems and platforms? And there's a load of benefit, of course. It's not just reduced time. There's risk benefit there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I want to kind of look at a bit more of the research if we can. So let's look at another figure that jumped out to me, and this is about 92% of people believe that automating invoice and supplier payment processes would allow their finance teams to focus on strategic priorities. So this again leads us back to the audience and another poll. So get your fingers on the buzzers here for poll number two. So if your AP team had more time to focus on strategic initiatives, what would these be? So working with procurement on vendor relationships and management, providing greater management information on time taken to pay, creditors outstanding, settlement discount taken, or something else. Please tell us what you do in the chat. So if you had a bit of free time because of automation, what would you focus on with that free time? This is great. A lot of people coming in now. This is fantastic. Quite even at the moment. The gift of time. So it's something that people don't often have, is it? But actually, it's just sort of the point of automation is to free up the humans in the organization to do some more creative thinking, hopefully. Let's take a look at some of these results. Okay, so I mean, it's all pretty evenly split, I suppose. So um, okay, so Melanie Liebo in the chat said that she'd focus on self-improvement, education, and streamlining more of the accounting department. But looking at the poll here, it's looking like most people at the moment say they would provide great management information on time, taken to pay creditors outstanding, settlement, and discounts taken. So let's get a bit of reaction then. Mike, your thoughts on what people would do with all that extra time?
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. Sorry, let me just close this poll down. Yeah, you pay the people there. If there's something that can be done automated, why are humans sat there doing it in the first place? And I know that was the way that everyone worked. But if you can automate it, then it gives you free time. I like there was a small amount percent of other as well that I think some of the people have put in the chat. Self-improvement, there's training that could be done, learning other platforms and other processes, self-education, and kind of elevating or leveling up anything that is away from the mundane keying in data from documents, either where it be physical or electronic on screen, into a system that you could get automated. Just makes sense, gives you that time back, doesn't it?
Yeah. Jamie, some people in the chat who were mentioning streamlined processing could help make their organization leaner, and that it's hard to replace workers. What are your thoughts on what people have said in the poll?
I think you can. I love that one by Melanie. The sense of personal value that it has to her, and the personal value is quite a big thing because later on it's mentioned how hard it's currently hard to replace workers, but if it's a day by day mundane job, it makes it easier to replace workers if you want to put it in that light. But the sense of personal value and what you're able to do with that time. So, thinking about what I can do to contribute to the bigger picture of my organization, how I can change what I do from a daily data capture job to be something that's being seen as appreciated within my organization, and of course, focusing on learning and development. So I really, really do resonate with that sense of personal value that was mentioned there.
Yeah. And Louise, we've spoken before on these webinars about how important you feel it is to have personal connections between AP teams and vendors and sort of work on sort of fostering those. So I suppose with AP, also with AI, if you like, and automated processes, that kind of frees up a bit more time to have some human connection within your teams.
Yeah, relationships with vendors are really important, right? They're strategic relationships, so not just a supplier and customer. If you're doing it right, they are anyway. So, and if you've got a good relationship with a vendor, if something hasn't been paid, even if it's an enormous amount, they're far more likely to call you and say what's going on than send you a letter before action or some threat of some action. So I think that's really important. I think somebody also said in thinking time. They didn't actually say it like that. What did she say? It was a great comment. Coming up with new ideas, right? So that's thinking time. That's thinking time, and that's continuous improvement. And when you have thinking time, you suddenly go, oh, blimey, there's a piece of processing or work that takes us a lot of time, or is very painful, or leads to a poor customer experience, or annoys our people, or whatever. It's only when you've got time to think and come up with new ideas that change can happen, and that's sort of continuous improvement. So I think if you can get rid of all the processing tasks, then having thinking time is amazing and really valuable because that's what leads to great change.
Yeah. And I suppose a lot of it is down to having that time to also go through stuff with a kind of a second pair of eyes, if you like. And because, automation and AI is only as good as the parameters you set for it to look at things. So any kind of irregularities or potential fraud, things that a human might pick up that a machine might not, they might come to the fore as well if people have got more time to investigate things.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The systems we tend to implement, even when Restore are either capturing data for organizations, processing it in mailrooms, and or sending it back to solutions, or the customers have the solutions on site, you're expecting and you're building in those kind of elements where it's doing duplicate checks, it's checking on suppliers, making sure the codes are correct, it's matching with data that's either being preloaded or dragged from another solution. Quite simple things, and don't take a long time to set up. But you're right, if something goes through and it's missed by someone because they've processed thousands of invoices that day, we all get tired, right? If a system can pick that up, it just takes that weight off someone's shoulders, and they're not worried about potentially missing those things or getting caught at the other end when they've paid something twice.
I agree. I agree with you, Mike. I think, like I mentioned previously, capture is only the start. So you can capture data automatically. Most people know that. But what are we doing to make sure that that data that we're capturing is valid, being authenticated not just by a human pair of eyes, but yes, leading to having a second pair of eyes checking it and then ending up in the right place.
Yeah. So crucial, isn't it, to kind of have that holistic approach to things. I suppose that some people might be listening to this and thinking this all sounds great, but where do I start? How do I kind of take my first steps on the journey? If like some people have said in the poll that they haven't even begun yet, or our a friend in the chat who said that they was completely analog with their company. Well, what are the first steps, and what should people do when they're thinking about taking on automation? Mike.
Again, I kind of mentioned it earlier on. A business case is obviously a good starting point, and gathering the data for that business case. The amount of staff or potentially users you have keying and capturing data, invoices that are coming in, and the end goal, what you're looking to achieve. And the way we work with organizations is we'll do an audit, or we'll come in and sit down with a team or a manager and work through what benefits they're going to get capturing certain elements of those documents, and actually try and, the keyword is return on investment, try and get to that, or work what they're potentially going to get back if there's a tangible saving at the end of that process. Because at the end of the day, you've got to, it's got to be worth doing and going down the automation route. But yeah, that's what we do. And then we'll, I say, a bit of a consultative approach, look at the best solution or a way forward for the organization using different systems that we either implement ourselves, processes that we'll build for the organization on site or off site, or EDM systems or document management systems, clever capture solutions and AI products that will help that organization drive that efficiency through what's being built. But yeah, it's always a bit of a business case, and kind of map out what they currently do is a good starting point. I don't know, Louise, would you?
Yeah, 100%. Look at your current process and then think, how would I do it if I started with a clean sheet of paper? Because it almost certainly won't be your current process. We once put a process on a wall in a big meeting room and invited everyone to come and join in. And as soon as we'd done that, it was a really long process. As soon as we'd done that, it became absolutely crystal clear why it was a rubbish process and why it didn't work and why there were bottlenecks. And we also put pain points on the wall and so on in a different color post-it. And, so write down your process, but then really think about, in a perfect world, how would it look? Because it almost certainly won't be what you're doing today. It's very unlikely to be. There are very few organizations I've come across that have got a brilliant process to start with. So yeah, look at your process. Jamie, you're nodding there as well.
I like that, because I was thinking one step further than that, but I like the fact that you stopped there, because I was going to say, find the biggest bottleneck and address that first, but you're not going to find the bottleneck unless you've actually reflected your process. So I do like that.
Yeah, there's some questions in the chat. Jamie, someone's asked do you suggest any AP software if they're going to start their journey into automation?
Mike Noyce would be a perfect person for you to consult with on the best software for your points or for your challenges. So he has some suggestions. I'll let him answer that.
I say Restore. We resell a few different products. We've got a few favorites and very good solutions that we've implemented over the last 20 years. And again, depending what the organization wants to achieve, we've got a suite of solutions that we can either install or implement for that organization. And I think we talked about at the start, kind of compartmentalizing the process. We have very good suites that just do capture of documents, and that's it, and then send the data and the images to either a hosted cloud platform, your ERP system, your finance system, wherever you want. We've got other very good systems and solutions that allow you to code in the product, match to purchase orders. We've got solutions that we can build purchase order forms, modules within. We've got a solution that has an end-to-end process, and you can pick and choose what the best parts that you'd like to use out of that system, and utilize just the elements that are good for you as a business. We have organizations that still unbelievably still send us paperwork to capture and scan. Sometimes it's the end of the archive and they've done everything internally, and they're sending us boxes a week to scan and capture as a late archive, and they still do that. And we have some that unbelievably we manage their mailboxes. So emails come to us with probably TIFF images, PDF images, JPEGs, all sorts of attachments that we extract, download, convert into the right data format that they need, extract the data from those documents every single day, and then send a CSV or an XML string of data back with the image back to their either, I don't know, cloud-based system or like an MS transfer site, and then they load that into the finance product. We're here to do the heavy lifting if needed, but we also have very, very good systems that the users or you as a customer can have on site to do everything yourself. So you don't have to use Resource to do the capture part. We build engines or put software solutions that allow you to do everything and pick and choose what parts you want to use. So yeah, it's whatever's best.
Yeah, you've got a phrase that I think you've used, Mike, which is sort of a halfway house between physical and digital. Is that right?
Yeah, physical. Yeah, it's a very and again, Restore as an organization store millions and millions of boxes of paper and documents and antiquities assets all over the country that organizations need access to. So finance, it's 6 years plus current. You've got to legally retain. If you've still got those in paper format, we've stored them for you. We put them off in storage. At a point in time, auditors might come along and you might need to retrieve those boxes. Rather than scan everything, we can offer a scan service or a digitalization service as and when needed and load to a cloud-based solution or our hosted platforms. It's all about what's the best and most cost-effective solution for the organization. So the physical way, or the word, is a very good term for us and the way we work. Again, going back to the AP kind of element and the capture and AI solutions, if you have documents sent into the organization electronic, you shouldn't ever really need to create a paper copy of those documents. If you can pass them into a system, extract the data you need to be extracted, and move them through a workflow process with authorization, then you should really try and we're all about helping the environment and not creating paper, and you don't want to get click charges for printing documents. If you can keep them in electronic sense, do the extractions and move them through a process, then we've got some amazing systems that do that are, and I like about them, very quick to set up and implement. I mean, I've seen a couple of comments here that I think someone said it's 11 or 13 months to build an automation AP solution. We've done a few in weeks. It's that quick nowadays, or it should be.
Okay. Well, that's great. So let's turn our eyes back to the research again. Another part of the research that was made very interesting reading to me was this figure about 73% of teams that are still not fully automated, and that's obviously been borne out in the chat as well. So over to the audience again. Fingers on buzzers, guys. It's over to you because we're going to go for another poll. That's right. So poll 3 is what would be your main goals for AP automation? So the options are reduce invoice processing time, improve visibility into AP workflow, reduce manual data entry errors, improve compliance and audit readiness, reduce paper usage, as Mike was just talking about there, or other. any other reason, then please specify. So it's a bit of more of a multi-pronged approach, this one. But what are your main goals for adopting AP automation? And we'll have a look at those as they come in. But it'd be really interesting to kind of see where people go. But certainly the early winner is reduce invoice processing time. So that freeing up free time seems to be a big one. We'll just hang on a little bit longer while people get their results in. Just a few more people to get results in. But what are we thinking of these results as they're coming in real time? Jamie, let's hear from you.
I wouldn't be surprised if that we're getting sort of most of those tick boxes checked by everyone because you know even those that checked some of their invoices are entered manually right at the beginning. That still these things are still going to apply to that because the goal is to reduce the amount of time you're processing your invoices. You do need more visibility, and I think the results there speak volumes. Not surprised that the paper usage is down lower than the others because, like Mike mentioned, most organizations do in fact receive invoices electronically now. But again, what's next once you've received them electronically? It still needs to be captured. So I think that's as expected.
Yeah. And Louise, any thoughts on those results as we see them?
I think reducing invoice processing time, it's not just about the time it takes you to process invoices, it's about how quickly you get them through your organization and approved. And I think a lot of people on this call will recognize that accounts payable are often blamed for late payments, and accounts payable are almost never responsible for late payments. I would say very, very rarely is it accounts payable's fault. It's usually that things have taken time to be approved in the organization. So if you can get it out to the right person in your organization or get it matched to a purchase order quickly, and they can get it back to you quickly, and you've got visibility of where it is in the process. So if someone says, why isn't that invoice being paid? And you say, well, actually, the senior vice president has had it for 41 days. That's why. Then I think that's really helpful. And it also means that you can produce great reporting on where your invoices are and where your bottlenecks are, who's holding them up and why. So, yeah. I think that this is a powerful tool for accounts payable departments to send out good information, really good management information about what the bottlenecks are. And very rarely will you find the bottleneck is accounts payable. Although back in the day when it was paper, you would find piles and piles of paper sitting on AP clerks' desks, and they were the bottleneck. And I think they very rarely are now.
Yeah. So yeah, we obviously time we've spoken about quite a lot in terms of the benefits of streamlining organizations and data entry as well. I want to talk a bit about audit readiness. It's something we probably don't talk about very much, I suppose, but that's come up as the third most popular reason. Is there a feeling that without automation, it's harder to be audit ready if you are just sort of chasing bits of paper around your office? Let's go, Jamie, on that one.
I suspect so. I suspect so because I mean I'm no auditor, but I've seen a couple. I've spoken to people who constantly get audited, and I've seen a couple audits happening. But it does take a bit of preparation because you're trying to streamline this audit, and you know that you're going to have to supply certain bits of information to these auditors. So at some point, you're going to have to prepare and get ready for this audit. That preparation time can vary, but it's still there for most organizations. But what if there was a way to reduce the amount of audit time or audit preparation time, because everything would be centrally filed as part of your process? It would be as simple as an auditor comes in and has the information ready at any given point throughout the year. So yeah, audit preparation can be eliminated to almost nothing if the right solution's been put in place.
Yeah. I'm just going to reflect some of the comments in the chat now. Bonnie Kershaw says that she works for a paperless company, which is absolutely amazing, saves time on approvals and so much more. So that's obviously that's great to hear from Bonnie. Yeah, sending her some applause there. What about people who might be in an organization who might feel there's some sort of a block in their organization to adopting it? Maybe their bosses aren't on board with getting hold of AP systems. What can people do to sort of move that along? Mike, any thoughts?
Again, going back to the business case, it's it's presenting something to say this would actually potentially save the organization money, time, make the work life environment a bit easier and less stressful. And if you can present those things, interestingly, I was on a call, one of the demos we had earlier on, it was actually an IT associate director, interestingly, with a printed invoice and PO on his desk, matching it up when we were talking around something else in the demo, but asking around that, and he was saying it just takes a long time doing this. And he was the one driving a business case for the organization to become more automated and to look at a solution that did something else with regards to contract renewals and the authorization of documents in a workflow. But the meeting we had naturally progressed into kind of an AP automation process and conversation, and saying we can do that, we can help you there. While you have a printed copy of a PO and a delivery note and an invoice on your desk. But yeah, it's to get someone in the business, and it's to make that decision and say, actually, there's a better way of working potentially. And if I've worked with or spoke to organizations before where you are dealing with a very small team, and it is their kind of core function, and they do get a bit nervous that if you automate an entire process, you take away the physical invoices, and there's only 3 or 4 people in the team, and they're thinking, actually, if that saving is going to come in, then maybe one of us might go. So it's about talking around, actually, it's repositioning that staff member or looking at potentially doing other things for that that department that would drive better efficiencies into the business and bring kind of a bit of way of working in, rather than actually we've saved this money, we're going to cull this person. So you sometimes get that pushback if you're not talking to the right person, or the department aren't used to or don't want to move to an AI and automated solution.
Yeah, so true. Right, we're kind of heading towards the end now, but before we finish, I'd really like to give everyone on the panel just sort of one takeaway key piece of advice for AP automation. Jamie, what's your takeaway thought for the audience from today and regarding this?
I really, really enjoyed the engagement. I love engaging with different organizations and different people all the time, because the challenges are mostly different, and the perspective of this challenge is different for everyone. So I think it just validates the reports the research that we've done, that there are organizations out there that don't have any AP automation in place, or only some AP automation in place. But what we really want to get across in this message is that you can ultimately have the gold standard of AP automation, where it's automated from start to finish.
Okay, Mike, your final thought for people. What do you want them to be leaving and thinking about?
Don't be scared to ask the questions, or come to an organization like us or anyone else out there and say, how can you help us? What could you do? Push the question to Restore or people like us to say, how can you save us time? How can you save us money? What can you automate in the process? What elements of the entire AP process can you show us that will actually make life easier for us? Because we're the ones that should be able to answer those questions, and actually even demo, the solution end to end with your documents, your processes, and show you that saving in the way. And it isn't that hard to do. It used to be a lot harder. I've been 20 years doing this now, with the cloud-based systems and the ease of setup, the low-code products that are out there. It's not hard to do the capture elements that most of these departments need. But yeah, ask the questions. We're here to help.
Okay, and Louise, your thoughts, I suppose, about the polls that we've had, the feedback we've had from people. Are they where you expected they'd be, or do you think people have kind of got still some way to go?
I think people have got some way to go. I think that's what our report said, and that's what the polls have shown us today. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think 2 things. First of all, you need to sell the why to your organization and to your people who are working for you in AP. Why are we doing it? What's the benefit? What's in it for me? Somebody said in the chat, it will make their lives easier. Yes, it will, absolutely. It won't always lead to headcount reduction, because your people can be doing all these lovely value-added stuff. So it's an efficiency proposition. It's also a risk avoidance proposition. 49% said they're not convinced they meet audit requirements. Finance directors hate hate auditors not being able to find invoices. And in this day and age, in the 21st century, you really ought to be able to put your hand on any document, and you're going to be able to do that much more easily if you automate. So my final thought would be bring your people on your journey with you, show them the benefits, show them what they can do with all that lovely time that they're going to have, that they're not spending doing really tedious tasks that can be automated and done by a machine.
Yeah, that's very well put. And I think actually it's been great to hear from people in the chat as well, because it sounds like we've gone from one extreme to the other. Some people who say they work for a completely paperless company, which is amazing and saves time on everything, to another person who says they work exclusively for a company that doesn't do anything automated. So, we're the full rainbow spectrum of people here on this automation journey. So thank you very much to our guests today for their thoughts and insights. Mike Boyce, Solutions Consultant at Restore Information Management. Thanks for your time. Jamie Priest, Regional Sales Director at DocuWare. Louise Graham, COO, and Head of Institutes at iFol. And thank you to the audience for joining us, because you only get out of these things what you put in. So thank you so much for all of your comments and points and your interactions and involvement today. It's really made today a really great webinar. So thank you very much for pitching in and getting involved. You can find more information about what we've discussed today on the iFol website, along with information about iFol membership. And this webinar is also going to be available on the website too very soon. So please do watch it back and share it for those who might have missed it. I'm Jay Viderlingham. Thanks very much for your time, and goodbye.